I've been a long-haul trucker for over 10 years, and I've seen some wild stuff, blizzards that bury you, roads that vanish into fog, even a guy claiming he saw Bigfoot. But nothing compares to the night I stopped for what I thought was a lost kid on a deserted highway. What I found instead, and the question it asked me, made me quit driving for good. My name's Jake, and back then, I lived for the road. The pay was decent, the solitude was my kind of peace, and I didn't mind the long hours. That night, I was hauling a load from Minneapolis to Portland, cutting through a stretch of nowhere in the Pacific Northwest. Picture this, endless forest on both sides, no towns, no gas stations, just a thin strip of asphalt swallowed by trees. It's the kind of place truckers avoid after dark if they can help it, no signal, no help, just you and whatever's out there. I'd been driving for 11 hours straight, running on fumes and stale coffee. A DT earlier had screwed my schedule, and I was pushing to make up time. My eyes were burning, and the dashboard's dim orange glow was the only thing keeping me anchored. The radio had been static for hours, so it was just me, the rumble of the engine, and the tires humming against the road. I was fighting sleep hard, slapping my face, chugging water, anything to stay sharp. Fatigue's a killer out there, and I'd seen what happens when you let it win. It was around 3 a.m. when I saw something. A flicker at the edge of my headlights, off to the right. Small, upright, gone in a blink as I rolled past. My brain, half fried from exhaustion, logged it as a deer or maybe a trick of the shadows. Happens all the time, trees turn into people, bushes into bears. I shook it off, took a swig from my water bottle, and kept my eyes on the road. But then I checked my side mirror. Habit, you know? And that's when my stomach dropped. There it was, lit up faint by my taillights, a small figure standing on the shoulder, right where I'd seen that flicker. Not moving, just there. Too small for an adult, too still for an animal. I told myself it was nothing. I was tired, seeing things. No kid would be out here, miles from anything, in the dead of night. But the image stuck, a tiny shape, alone in the dark. What if it was a kid? Lost, hurt, needing help? I couldn't shake it. I've got a niece that age, 6 or 7, and the thought of her stranded out there twisted something in me. I wrestled with it for maybe a minute, watching the figure shrink in the mirror. Every gut instinct said keep going, but that little voice, the one that makes you human, won out. I slowed the rig, brakes hissing, and pulled onto the shoulder. Hazards on, I grabbed my flashlight and stepped into the cold. The air hit me sharp, smelling like pine and damp earth, and the silence was thick, no crickets, no wind, just the hum of my truck. Hey! I yelled, my voice bouncing off the trees. You okay out there? Nothing. The figure didn't budge, just stood there, back to me, facing the woods. I flicked on the flashlight and took a few steps closer, boots crunching gravel. Hey, kid! What's going on? Slowly, it turned its head, not all the way, just enough for me to catch a glimpse. A boy, maybe 7, pale as hell, with dark hollows where his eyes should have been. He was in thin pajamas, light blue, no coat, no shoes. Out here, in the freezing dark, that alone was nuts. I'm Jake, I said, trying to sound calm. I drive trucks. Are you lost? Where's your family? He stared at me, blank, then whispered, I'm trying to get home. Home. I glanced around, nothing but forest and road. Where's that? Nearby. He pointed at the trees, his hand shaky. In there. But it's too dark. I can't find the way. I aimed my light at the woods. It was a black wall, dense pines, tangled brush, no sign of a trail or a house. Buddy, there's nothing in there. You sure that's right? He nodded, still staring. Please, help me. I'm cold. I froze. Part of me screamed to get back in the truck, this was all kinds of wrong. But he looked so small, so pitiful. Maybe his folks were camped out there, or he'd wandered off from somewhere close. I couldn't just leave him. Okay, I said, swallowing hard. We'll figure it out. Stay by me, though, it's not safe in there at night. He didn't come closer. Instead, he stepped back, toward the trees. You have to come with me. I can't do it alone. Why not? I can call someone when we hit a signal. No need to go in there. Please, he said, louder now, almost begging. It's close. Just a little way. Come with me. My skin prickled. It felt like a trap, like he was pulling me into something bad. I took a step back, suddenly hyper-aware of how alone I was out here. That's when I saw it, a dark line behind him, stretching from his back into the woods. I thought it was a shadow at first, but my flashlight caught it, a thick, black tube, like some twisted hose, pulsing faintly. It was hooked into him, running off into the trees. What the hell is that? I stammered, pointing. He tilted his head, and his face shifted, harder, colder. It's nothing. You're tired. Come with me, it'll be okay. No, I see it. It's right there, connected to you. He went still, and the air got heavy, like it was pressing down on me. Then his voice changed, deep, rough, like gravel grinding together. It didn't belong to a kid. Why, he rasped, every word clawing at my skull, the fuck are humans smarter now? I couldn't move for a second, couldn't think. That wasn't a kid's voice, it was old, pissed off, and wrong. The question hit me like a punch, dripping with some ancient frustration I didn't understand. All I knew was I had to get out. I bolted for the truck, legs pumping on autopilot. I heard him call after me, but I didn't look. I slammed the door, locked it, and cranked the engine with shaking hands. As I peeled out, I caught a glimpse in the mirror. He was just standing there, watching, that tube still linking him to the dark. And for a split second, I swear I saw the trees move, like something bigger was shifting back there. I floored it, driving like a maniac until the sun came up and I hit a town. Even then, I couldn't stop shaking. I dodged something that wasn't human, something that wanted me in those woods. And that question? It stuck with me, gnawing at me every damn day since. After escaping the eerie encounter with the kid, I drove like a bat out of hell, my heart pounding in my chest. The image of that thing, whatever it was, standing there with that dark tube snaking into the woods was burned into my mind. I kept checking my mirrors, half expecting to see it chasing me down the highway. But there was nothing. Just the empty road stretching out behind me, swallowed by the night. I tried to calm myself down, taking deep breaths and focusing on the road ahead. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe I'd imagined the whole thing. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. What I'd seen was real, and it scared the hell out of me. As the adrenaline started to wear off, exhaustion crept back in. I'd been driving for hours, and my body was begging for rest. But I couldn't stop, not yet. I needed to put as much distance between me and that thing as possible. The road ahead was dark and deserted, the only light coming from my headlights cutting through the blackness. The forest on either side seemed to close in, the trees looming like silent sentinels. Every shadow looked like a potential threat, every rustle of leaves made me jump. I turned on the radio, hoping to drown out my thoughts with some music or a talk show. But all I got was static, a low hiss that seemed to whisper secrets I didn't want to hear. I quickly switched it off, preferring the silence. My mind kept replaying the encounter. The kid's blank stare, the way he, or it, had tried to lure me into the woods. And that voice, that deep, unnatural voice asking why humans were smarter now. What did that even mean? Was it some kind of ancient creature, frustrated that its tricks no longer worked as well? As I drove, I started noticing things out of the corner of my eye. Fleeting shapes in the trees, like figures darting between the trunks. I told myself it was just my imagination, but the hairs on the back of my neck stood up every time it happened. Then, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Up ahead, on the side of the road, was another small figure. It looked just like the first one, pale, in pajamas, standing motionless. My heart skipped a beat. Was it the same kid? Or another one? I slowed down slightly, my instinct screaming at me to keep going. As I passed, I looked directly at it. The figure turned its head, and I saw those same dark, hollow eyes staring back at me. It didn't move, didn't try to flag me down. It just watched as I drove by. I floored the accelerator, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. This couldn't be happening. There was no way there were more of them. But as I glanced in my mirrors, I saw the figure still standing there, and behind it, another shape emerging from the woods. Panic set in. I was alone, miles from help, and these things were appearing all around me. I needed to get off this road, find somewhere safe. That's when I saw the sign for a roadside diner, just a few miles ahead. It was a lifeline, a beacon of hope in the darkness. I pushed the truck to its limits, praying I'd make it there in one piece. When I finally pulled into the diner's parking lot, I let out a sigh of relief. There were a few other trucks parked outside, and the neon sign glowed warmly, promising coffee and company. I grabbed my jacket and headed inside, my legs shaky from the adrenaline crash. The diner was small and cozy, with checkered floors and booths lining the walls. I took a seat at the far end and ordered a black coffee and a slice of pie. I needed something to steady my nerves. As I waited, I overheard two truckers talking about the road I'd just come from. One of them, a grizzled man with a beard named Tom, mentioned stories about kids appearing on the side of the road, luring drivers into the woods. My ears perked up, and I joined the conversation, describing what I'd seen. Tom's eyes widened when I mentioned the tube snaking into the woods. "You're lucky to be alive," he said, leaning in close. "Those things, whatever they are, aren't human. They try to draw you in, and if you go, you're gone for good. Stick to the main roads, keep your lights on, and don't stop for anything." I thanked him and finished my coffee, my mind buzzing with fear and confusion. As I headed back to the truck, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I climbed into the cab, locked the doors, and pulled back onto the highway. The forest seemed alive with shadows, every flicker of movement making my heart race. I turned on the radio again, but it was still just static. Then, through the hiss, I heard a faint voice, "Help me. Please, help me." It was the same voice from before, now coming from the radio even though it shouldn't have been possible. "Get out of the truck," it continued. "Come to me. I need you." I switched off the radio, my hand shaking, but the whispers persisted, echoing in my mind, "Come to us. Join us. It's so peaceful here." Up ahead, I saw them, dozens of small figures lining the road, their dark eyes fixed on my truck. They stood motionless, watching as I approached, their pale faces illuminated by my headlights. As I passed, they reached out, their small hands brushing against the truck, their voices a cacophony begging me to stop. I kept my foot on the gas, praying I'd make it through. Just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, the figures began to thin out, and the road opened up. I was past them, for now. I let out a trembling breath, my body shaking with fear and exhaustion. I had to keep going, I had a job to do, and I wasn't going to let these things stop me. But deep down, I knew the worst was yet to come. I drove for what felt like hours, my eyes glued to the road, hands clenched on the wheel. The figures had thinned out, but I knew they were still out there, lurking in the shadows. My heart hadn't stopped racing since the diner, and the coffee I'd downed did nothing to calm my nerves. If anything, it made me jittery, hyper-aware of every flicker in the trees. I needed help. I couldn't keep driving blind into whatever this was. Maybe if I could reach someone, another trucker, dispatch, anyone, I could figure out what to do. I grabbed the CB radio, praying for a signal. The static crackled, then cleared just enough for me to hear a faint voice. "Breaker, breaker, this is Jake on Route 9, heading west. Can anyone hear me?" For a second, there was nothing but white noise. Then, a voice cut through, garbled but clear enough. "This is Big Earl, eastbound on 9. What's your 20, Jake?" Relief flooded me. "I'm about 50 miles past the diner, near the old logging road. Listen, something's wrong out here. I've seen things. Kids on the road, but they're not right. They've got these tubes or something attached to them. You know anything about this?" There was a pause, then Earl's voice came back, tense. "You saw them? Damn, kid, you're in deep. Those things, they're not kids. They're lures. Part of something bigger, something that lives in these woods. You got to get out of there, fast." "Lures? For what?" "For it," Earl said, his voice dropping. "The thing in the forest. It's old, older than anything. It uses those kids to draw people in. Once you're in the woods, you don't come out. Stay on the road, don't stop, and whatever you do, don't go near the bridge up ahead. Bridge? What bridge? There's an old wooden bridge about 10 miles from where you are. It's falling apart, but it's the only way across the ravine. Problem is, that's where it's strongest. The closer you get, the more it'll try to pull you in. If you see the kids again, ignore them. And if the road starts to change, you floor it. Change? What do you mean? But the radio cut out, swallowed by static. I tried calling again, but it was dead. The silence felt heavier now, like the air itself was thickening. I glanced at the clock, 4:30 a.m. Dawn was still hours away, and I was alone again. The road stretched out, dark and endless. I kept my speed steady, but my mind was racing. What did Earl mean by the road changing? And what was this thing in the woods? Some kind of monster? A spirit? I didn't believe in that stuff, but after what I'd seen, I wasn't sure what to believe anymore. Then, I noticed something odd. The trees on either side seemed closer than before, their branches reaching over the road like claws. The asphalt looked rougher, pitted with cracks and potholes that hadn't been there earlier. I slowed down, careful not to blow a tire, but the road only got worse. It was like the forest was reclaiming it, piece by piece. Up ahead, I saw the bridge Earl had mentioned. It was a rickety wooden thing, barely wide enough for my truck, spanning a deep ravine. The drop had to be at least 100 feet, maybe more. I swallowed hard. If I didn't cross it, I'd be stuck on this side, with those things closing in. As I approached, the air grew colder, and a thick fog rolled in from the woods, curling around the bridge like ghostly fingers. My headlights barely cut through it, and the road seemed to narrow, the edges crumbling into the ravine below. Then, I saw them again, dozens of small figures, lining the road leading to the bridge. They stood motionless, their pale faces turned toward me, dark eyes gleaming in the fog. Some were on the bridge itself, blocking the way. My stomach twisted. I couldn't go back, and I couldn't go forward without plowing through them. But Earl's words echoed in my head, they're not kids. They're lures. I gripped the wheel tighter, my knuckles white. Screw it, I muttered, and slammed my foot on the gas. The truck roared forward, barreling toward the bridge. The figures didn't move, didn't flinch. As I got closer, I saw their mouths open, all at once, in silent screams. Their hands reached out, fingers brushing the sides of my truck, but I didn't stop. I plowed through them, feeling the impact as they crumpled under the wheels, but there was no blood, no bodies, just a sickening thud and then nothing. I hit the bridge at full speed, the wooden planks groaning under the weight. The fog was so thick I could barely see, but I kept going, praying the bridge would hold. Halfway across, the truck lurched to the side, and I heard a loud crack, one of the planks had given way. I corrected the wheel, heart pounding, and pushed forward. Just as I thought I was clear, something slammed into the side of the truck, hard enough to make it swerve. I glanced in the mirror and saw it, a massive shape, dark and formless, rising from the ravine. It was huge, bigger than anything I'd ever seen, with tendrils of shadow whipping through the fog. The thing from the woods. It was coming for me. I floored the accelerator, the engine screaming as the truck bounced over the last few planks. The bridge shuddered, and I heard the wood splintering behind me, but I didn't look back. I burst through the fog on the other side, the road opening up again, and the figures were gone. For a moment, there was silence. Then, a low, rumbling growl echoed through the night, shaking the ground beneath me. I didn't stop. I couldn't. I drove until the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, and the forest finally gave way to open fields. I pulled over at a gas station, my hand still shaking. I'd made it through, but I knew I wasn't safe yet. Whatever that thing was, it was still out there, and it wasn't done with me. I had to keep moving. I had to finish this run and get the hell away from these woods. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't be that easy. Something told me this wasn't over. The highway stretched out before me, a ribbon of asphalt cutting through the now peaceful fields. The sun was fully up, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the forest was still watching me. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary, the crowbar resting on the passenger seat like a lifeline. I'd made it out of Pine Creek, or whatever that ghost town really was, but I wasn't convinced I'd left the nightmare behind. The truck's engine hummed steadily as I drove, my eyes darting to the rearview mirror every few seconds. Nothing. No pale figures, no looming shadows. Just the road and the occasional flicker of a bird in the distance. I tried to convince myself it was over, that I'd outrun whatever had been hunting me. But the old woman's words echoed in my head, "It wants your soul." What the hell did that even mean? I'd been driving for about an hour when I noticed the fuel gauge dipping low. I cursed under my breath. The last thing I needed was to be stranded out here. I scanned the horizon for a gas station, praying I'd find something before the tank ran dry. A few miles later, a faded sign came into view, "Rest stop, 2 miles." Relief washed over me. A rest stop meant people, lights, maybe even a phone to call for help. When I pulled into the lot, it was quieter than I'd hoped. A single car sat parked near the entrance, and the gas pumps were unmanned, but the lights inside the small convenience store were on. I filled the tank, keeping an eye on the tree line in the distance. The forest was still there, a dark wall of green and brown, but it felt farther away now, less alive. Inside the store, a bored-looking cashier barely glanced up from her phone as I grabbed another coffee and a pack of smokes. I hesitated, then decided to test the waters. "Hey, you ever hear anything weird about the woods around here?" I asked, keeping my tone casual. She raised an eyebrow, setting her phone down. "Weird how?" "Like, people seeing things. Figures on the road, maybe." She smirked, but there was a flicker of unease in her eyes. "You been talking to the old-timers? They're always going on about ghost stories. Say the forest's haunted or some crap. I don't buy it. Just trees and deer out there." I nodded, not pushing it. She didn't need to know what I'd seen. I paid and headed back to the truck, lighting a cigarette as I walked. The nicotine steadied my nerves, but I couldn't shake the cashier's words. Just trees and deer. If only she knew. Back on the road, I kept the radio on low, static crackling through an old country song. The normalcy of it was almost comforting, until the static grew louder, drowning out the music. I frowned, twisting the dial, but it didn't help. Then, through the noise, I heard it, that same whispery voice from the cabin. "Jake!" I slammed the radio off, my heart pounding. The cab was silent now, but the air felt heavier, like something was pressing in. I glanced out the window, and my stomach dropped. The fields were gone. The road was flanked by trees again, tall, gnarled ones that hadn't been there minutes ago. The forest was back, and it was closer than ever. I floored the gas, the truck lurching forward, but the trees kept pace, their branches scraping the sides of the cab like bony fingers. Up ahead, the road narrowed, twisting into a tunnel of foliage. I didn't have a choice, I had to keep going. The whispers started again, louder this time, overlapping into a chorus of voices. "You can't leave, you belong to us." I clenched my jaw, refusing to look at the shadows moving between the trees. They were out there again, those pale figures, darting in and out of sight, their hollow eyes tracking me. The truck jolted as something heavy hit the roof. I swerved, nearly losing control, and heard a low growl that vibrated through the cab. Whatever was up there wasn't human. I grabbed the crowbar, ready to swing if it came through the windshield, but the weight lifted as suddenly as it had landed. The growling faded, replaced by an eerie silence. I didn't slow down. The road twisted and turned, the trees pressing in tighter, until I saw a faint light ahead, a break in the forest. I pushed the truck harder, the engine roaring, and burst out into open air. The trees fell away, revealing a small, bustling town. Gas stations, a diner, people walking along the sidewalks. Civilization. I pulled into the first parking lot I saw, a truck stop with a neon sign blinking open 24/7. My hands were shaking as I shut off the engine and stepped out, the crowbar still clutched in my fist. A couple of other truckers nodded at me from their rigs, and a waitress waved through the diner window. It felt real, solid, not like Pine Creek. I sat in the diner for hours, nursing a coffee and replaying everything in my head. The figures, the shadow, the old woman, the book. Sacrifice. Was that what it wanted? My life? Or something more? I didn't know, and I wasn't sure I wanted to find out. When night fell, I stayed put. I wasn't driving again, not yet. I rented a room at the truck stop motel, locked the door, and kept the lights on. Sleep didn't come easy, and when it did, it was filled with dreams of dark woods and whispering voices. The next morning, I made a decision. I called my boss and told him I was done. No more long hauls, no more lonely roads. He tried to argue, but I didn't budge. I'd seen too much, felt too much. The forest could have someone else's soul, I was keeping mine. I hitched a ride back home with another driver, leaving the truck behind. As we passed the edge of the forest, I swore I saw a figure standing just beyond the trees, watching me go. I didn't look too long. Now, I'm back with my family, working a local job, staying off the highways. But some nights, when the wind howls through the trees near my house, I hear it, that whisper, calling my name. I don't answer. I don't think I ever will. If you're reading this, take my advice, stay off the back roads at night. There's something out there, something old and hungry, and it doesn't let go once it's got your scent. I got lucky, but luck runs out eventually. Don't test it. After that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still out there, watching me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that small figure standing on the shoulder, heard that gravelly voice echoing in my mind, why the fuck are humans smarter now? The words haunted me, like a riddle I couldn't solve. I'd escaped, but it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like I'd been spared, for now. I tried to go back to normal, but normal didn't exist anymore. The road had changed me. I couldn't look at the woods the same way, couldn't drive past a stretch of trees without feeling that cold prickle on my neck. And the worst part? I kept wondering if it would happen again. If that thing, or others like it, was still out there, waiting for the next tired soul to pull over. For weeks, I wrestled with it. I thought about quitting, selling the rig, and finding some desk job where the only monsters were spreadsheets. But trucking was all I knew. It was in my blood. Still, I couldn't ignore what I'd seen. I had to do something, anything, to make sense of it. That's when I started talking to other drivers. At truck stops, in diners, over lukewarm coffee and stale donuts, I'd bring it up, carefully, at first. Ever see anything weird out on the road? Like, something you can't explain. Most guys laughed it off, told stories about UFOs or hitchhiking ghosts. But every now and then, someone's face would change. Their eyes would darken, and they'd lean in, voice low, and say, "Yeah, I've seen things." One guy, an old-timer named Hank, told me about a stretch of highway in the Dakotas where he'd seen a kid just like the one I described, pale, barefoot, standing on the shoulder at 3 a.m. He'd almost stopped, but something told him to keep going. Another driver, a woman named Carla, said she'd heard stories about the lures, creatures that mimic lost children to draw people into the woods. She didn't know what they were, but she knew enough to stay away. The more I heard, the more I realized I wasn't alone. There were others who'd brushed up against the same darkness, who'd felt that same pull toward something they couldn't understand. And like me, they'd gotten away, but not everyone was so lucky. There were stories of drivers who'd vanished on those lonely roads, their trucks found abandoned, doors open, with no sign of a struggle. Just gone. I started keeping a journal, writing down every story I heard, every detail that matched my own experience. It wasn't much, but it felt like a way to fight back, to arm myself with knowledge. If that thing was frustrated that humans were smarter now, maybe it was because we were starting to catch on. Maybe we were learning not to fall for its tricks. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. Whatever that entity was, it was ancient, patient, and it wasn't going to stop just because a few of us had wised up. It would adapt, find new ways to lure people in. And that terrified me. I decided to make a change. I couldn't keep driving long hauls, not with that memory hanging over me. So, I took a job at a truck stop off the interstate, managing the fuel desk and serving coffee to drivers passing through. It wasn't glamorous, but it kept me connected to the road without being out there alone. And it gave me a chance to talk to people, to hear their stories, and to warn them. I started small, pinning notes on the bulletin board near the restrooms, "Watch out for Route 9 after dark. Don't stop for hitchhikers on the old logging road." Most folks ignored them, but a few took notice. One night, a young driver came in, fresh-faced and cocky, bragging about how he'd made record time on a sketchy back road. I pulled him aside, told him what I'd seen, and watched the color drain from his face. He left with a nod and a promise to stick to the main highways. It wasn't much, but it was something. A way to fight back, to make sure others didn't fall into the same trap. And in a strange way, it gave me peace. I'd face something evil and live to tell about it. Now, I could help others do the same. But the nightmares didn't stop. Some nights, I'd wake up in a cold sweat, the image of that kid burned into my mind, the feeling of that tube pulsing in the dark. And sometimes, when the wind howled through the trees behind the truck stop, I swore I could hear that voice again, whispering my name, calling me back to the road. I never answered. I'd made my choice. I wasn't going back out there, not alone, not at night. But I knew, deep down, that the entity was still out there, waiting for the next driver, the next fool who didn't know better. If you're reading this, take my advice, stay off the back roads after dark. Stick to the well-lit highways, the ones with traffic and life. And if you ever see a lost child standing on the shoulder, especially where they shouldn't be, think twice before you stop. It might not be a child at all. It might be something else, something that's been waiting for you all along. And if you do stop, well, I hope you're smarter than I was.